Yeah.
Okay, well, good afternoon. Thanks for having us here. My name is Catherine Liebernick. I'm an assistant professor in the Community Regional Planning Program in the School of Architecture at the University of Texas at Austin. And today I want to spend about 20 minutes just giving an overview and kind of update on the Equitable and Regenerative Cities in a Post-Carbon Future flagship project that I co-lead with my colleague, Fernanda Leite, who's a professor in civil architectural and environmental engineering. She's not with us today, but you can always, I'll provide my email at the end. You can always reach out to her through my email. So what I thought we would do today is just give you a quick introduction to the project and the team. A lot of this year's work has been team building, which I kind of looking back on it has felt like a major accomplishment. So I want to kind of share all the people we have assembled to help us focus on this phase of the work. Give an overview of the first phase, which we're kind of wrapping up this spring, an update on kind of this ongoing second phase. So I know that this image is shown a lot, but I just want to kind of set the stage for where we are. This is the Equitable and Regenerative Cities project. This is the great artwork that Champ Taylor made for the flagship projects a couple of years ago. And really, when Fernanda and I sat down to kind of like start to think and mock up what this flagship could focus on, we wanted to kind of take a circular economy approach, but make it more participatory, because it's been used to some degree in like research in Europe and to some degree in the US and even in Texas, but not always kind of merged with thinking about kind of participatory research. So we wanted to think about how we could co-design with community equitable and regenerative cities. And really just kind of the stage setting for that was just thinking about the future of Texas kind of as part of midway through our Planet Texas 2050 flagship, thinking about continued urbanization, decarbonization, and the climate crisis and how that is already transforming Texas and will continue to transform the state. A lot of challenges, but also an opportunity to kind of have this like once in a century chance to reimagine and rebuild and redesign communities. With our hope of regenerating value, reducing waste, conserving resources, and creating health, well-being, and wealth in an equitable way. So what we thought with this project, kind of our inspiration for it, was thinking about how we could work with community partners, with researchers, and residents to develop a participatory circular economy approach to the built environment that centers land and resource use on regeneration and waste elimination. Just moving your faces so I can see you while I talk. And I don't want to get too much into jargon, but just, well, I will do this one slide. Just what we're thinking about with a traditional linear economy is kind of how most economies in the US are set up right now, or as well as kind of nationwide, which is thinking about resource sourcing, so extracting resources, using them usually once, and then disposing them as waste. So it's wasteful from an ecological perspective, from a social perspective. There's a lot of labor issues that come with it, and economic issues and problems. So what we wanted to do is try to take the circular economy approach of still having growth, but decoupling it from resource consumption. So being able to reuse natural resources and materials, and also reduce the use of them in the first place, because you're able to kind of close the cycle a little bit with it. So that's the traditional circular economy approach. And we wanted to kind of embed that in a frame of participatory research. So what we thought was we'd look at the cities scale, because Fernanda and I both look at cities. She is an engineer and myself as a planner. And thought what we try to do over this couple of years is to bring in as many systems as possible and kind of see how they integrate and fit together and have these synergies, and see how that kind of coalescing might help build new knowledge about what a circular economy approach might look like in Texas metropolitan areas, but do this in kind of a participatory research framework. So, and this is just kind of early on thinking about what some of the systems that we might include would be. And to date, we actually have brought in a lot of these. We're looking at, and I'm just about to get the overview, but food, green space, energy, water, and infrastructure right now, kind of in the midst of, we're about a year into the project. We started spring of last year. I do want to just spend a moment introducing our team members, and starting off by thanking Jonathan Lowell, who's our community liaison for Planet Texas 2050. And he has I can't even explain how much he's helped us this year, assembling this huge team of community and city fellows. So everything from helping design the open call for proposals and applications to evaluating them and choosing fellows and helping us set up meetings with all these people, which is always hard anyway. So just a big thank you to Jonathan for his work. But excitedly, what we have planned for this year is to bring together people from the community and people at UT to start looking at the circular approach. Dr. Charles Moody, Emily Rafferty, Kenneth Thompson, and Matt Weldon. And our city fellows here at UT Austin are Sergio Castellanos, Calciana Hollis Hansen, and Becky Lenz. And then the co-leads are Fernanda and I. Lucy Atkinson is an associate professor in communications who is now leading the phase 1. So she took that over this year as we wrapped it up. And we have 2 fantastic research assistants, Yuchen Gabrielle Lee and Bianca Pizarro Vasquez. So that's our team for this year. And how we've kind of scoped out this project is that the first phase, which we started last spring, was really thinking about doing a pilot project and starting to try to coalesce some community, some case studies across the state. So try to get out of Austin a little bit, hear from residents from other places in the state about their thoughts on what a circular approach to urban systems might look like in Texas. We were hoping that we'd be able to do this in person, face-to-face workshops with our community partner kind of helping facilitate. That was this part of the research was community powered workshop, a community design firm based here in Austin. But because of the pandemic, we ended up doing survey work instead, which was fascinating. So they put together some really cool different types of interactive online activities to try to gather stories about food. So we decided to focus on food systems for our first year because we figured that was kind of a accessible entry point for most Texas residents. Most of us, interact with food most days. It's easy to see the material flows of, acquiring it, cooking it, producing it, eating it, getting rid of it, reusing it maybe. So we did an online survey to collect some examples from across the state of different phases of the food system as it relates to circularity. And then this year, Lucy is working with 2 graduate research assistants to follow up on some of the contacts that we made through that work last year to do focus groups and interviews to try to then take the stories from the survey and the focus groups and the interviews and kind of build some narratives and kind of storytelling pieces around food systems in Texas, and trying to kind of mesh it into this idea of kind of a circular framework. So that's wrapping up right now. For Lucy and our GRAs they'll be writing up the narratives this spring and into the early summer. So originally, and I just went ahead and kept the original title of this phase 2, even though it has shifted a little bit, but kind of our broad umbrella is what we're trying to do in this second phase, which started this fall, is to take some of the information and lessons that we learned from the first phase, the pilot piece, and then dig deeper into particular urban systems and a couple places, perhaps in Austin or across the state. And what we decided to do was look at those systems and kind of the long-term stressors and the shorter-term acute shocks, particularly here in Austin. And we decided to collaborate with the City of Austin's Resilience Hubs initiative. So the City of Austin City Council asked the city through the Office of Sustainability to spearhead creation of several resilience hubs throughout the city, starting right now, kind of wrapping up in the next year or so. And the idea is that these are going to be kind of physical locations where residents can go during an extreme weather event, for water, for electricity to charge your cell phone battery, but also that they can also be physical places to help with, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little internet connections unstable, so let me know if it's not working. A physical place for people to connect with resources and knowledge for preparing for these disasters, as well as recovery, which is so often kind of left out of that piece. So that's kind of the big vision for it. And, these resilience hubs, there's a lot of people involved and a lot of different ideas about where they may go. But with this opportunity happening, and it seems so aligned with our focus on kind of circular urban systems, we thought this would be kind of the place to land for this year for thinking about being engaged in a particular community. So what we've done is throughout the fall, with Jonathan's tremendous help, put out call for applications for 3 fellows based here at UT Austin with different expertise areas. So we're focusing in Austin on the resilience hubs, and we're assembling our team. So we have cities fellows, 3 different expertise of system areas here at UT Austin. And then we also have community members serving as community fellows. And the idea is that they'll kind of form these nodes around the systems to kind of apply their expertise, their lived experience, their background to thinking in particular about resilience hubs in the city of Austin. So there's not a formal contract with Austin. They don't have to take our advice, but we're going to see what we can kind of bring to the table with this participatory approach to kind of a circular system, thinking about resilience hubs. So that's what we're doing right now. And again, it's been really exciting. We had our first meeting with the community fellows last week at the panel. We did a debriefing afterwards. And the 3 city fellows based here at UT Austin, Becky Lenz focuses on digital inclusion and telecommunication systems. Kelsiana Hollis-Hansen focuses on food systems. And Sergio Castellanos focuses on energy justice and energy technologies. So the idea is that this spring, we're going to have a series of shorter meetings leading up to hopefully most of a day workshop, hopefully in person, where we bring together the community fellows and the city fellows, kind of bring everyone's expertise to the table and see what we can come up with as far as information that could be useful for the city's resilience hub efforts in this kind of broader framework. And then by midsummer, we'll have a report based on that, focusing on these 3 systems in addition to green infrastructure systems that one of the GRAs is working on, and also water systems. So that's kind of the product that will come from all this kind of involvement this year. And before I move on to phase 3, which is, and then I'll wrap it up with that, I did want to mention that there's the city effort for the resilience hubs, this Planet Tech, and additional kind of thinking about it and information that might be useful and helpful, collecting a tremendous amount of information about community resident desires and wants and needs when it comes to resilience hubs. So that's like a huge resource to draw on when we think about kind of bringing it out to the system scale and integrating it. So there's lots of great stuff to draw on already. That's work's been done by residents as well. So just to wrap up for what we've planned for phase 3 is that, you know, back in kind of the very early days of Planet Texas 2050, we really were trying to think about kind of co-produced knowledge production and real life application, making sure that at the end of the day, at the end of kind of the 8-year project, that Texans had something in addition to academic research, but something that could be useful from maybe a policy or planning perspective. So what we have planned for this flagship project is to think about a co-created framework focused on these questions of equity and regenerative systems in cities, kind of looking through this participatory circular approach. And what we imagine is it would be kind of a collection of tools and strategies, policies and approaches that's co-developed with our community stakeholders based on the knowledge discovery that we've done in those first 2 phases, the pilot piece on food, and then this year where we're trying to bring together multiple systems focused on resilience hubs. And we're hoping that this is something that could be useful throughout the state, in addition to Austin, where this piece of the research is focused, and perhaps beyond the state as well, which is another intent of Planet Texas 2050. So that 3rd phase is scheduled to kick off this September. And we could probably go 2 different directions with it, which we're kind of thinking about right now. We could stick with Austin and continue work with resilience hubs and kind of try to extract what's going on in the resilience hubs effort in Austin and see if there's kind of tools and strategies we could develop from that could be useful in other places across the state or beyond. But Fernanda and I also have had a lot of active research proposals that we've submitted in partnership with many people on this call, like the Sao Paulo, that are focused on the Gulf Coast region, so a broader region, even than Texas, and certainly outside of Austin itself. So if some of those proposals come together, we might synergize with that and kind of fold our flagship into some of that work. I think, again, just trying to go back to what we were thinking kind of the early days of Planet Texas 2050, that we would try hard to make it a statewide effort. So thinking about trying to be a little bit broader with our geography of focus. So that's phase 3, and we'll kind of have to check back. It's a little bit under construction depending on what happens with other funding sources coming up in the next several months. But I will wrap it up with that, and my email's here. And please reach out with questions, and I can definitely connect you to other team members, provide more information about the project, and and when we start to get together the white paper from this year's work with the fellows, happy to share that as well. Thank you.